And we're just talking about life and what's important. And one of the things I started by saying before we began the recording was that money is important. It's not the only thing in the world, but making some money often helps you have a healthy and happy family, and it allows you to do other good things like help your neighbors or your friends when they're in trouble. So we had a little discussion about money. Is it the root of all evil, or is it not? And I would say mostly not. Um, Ariel and Armin sent me an agenda, and if it's okay with you guys, I thought we would start with number 2, which is let's work through a commercial deal. And what is a deal that you see on MLS, and how would you analyze it? I think that's the question you put down, Ariel, on your agenda.
Um, might be
Yeah,
me or Armin, but that's what we have for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, that was on my end. I'm
Okay.
just curious as to like
Yeah,
if you were to go on MLS, how would you like do it yourself?
exactly. So I thought, just because I know it so well, we would do actually one of my MLS listings, commercial.
Okay,
All right.
perfect.
So I think I put it up. Yeah, here it is. All right. So this is on MLS right now. I put it up, I think, last week, and I got to share it with you guys. And I don't know if you'll recognize it, but this is I just boot up the pictures here. Can you see the pictures okay?
Yep.
All right. So this is a 6.5 acre site, about 5 minutes from down, maybe even less, 3 or 4 minutes from downtown Smith Falls.
Hmm.
So it's about less than 5 minutes by car from this highway commercial site, which is on Highway 43. Highway 43 has about 7,500 vehicles a day, which is reasonable. That's a good traffic volume. Just so you know, around 7,500 or 7,600 vehicles a day, you probably can build a reasonable retail plaza and feel comfortable that you'll probably do okay.
Yeah.
How much did you say, sorry?
Around 7,500 vehicles a day.
Ah,
And the
okay.
average occupancy of vehicles is about 1.1 Ario. So, you multiply 7,600, say, times 1.1, you get just under 8,000 people a day going by this site.
Do you get these, sorry to interrupt, but do you get these figures from the ministry's website or?
Sometimes you can get them from the Ministry of Transportation for Ontario. Sometimes you get them from the township or the town or the city. They're available. You just have to hunt around.
Okay.
All right. And this is, although it's in Smith Falls, it's actually in the township of North Elmsley. So you just call the township office, they have the numbers. Now, the numbers are usually a few years old, so presumably the traffic is probably a little higher now, but 7,600 vehicles a day is what we were told. So just under 8,000 people a day. That plaza in Dunrobin, the one that got blown down, that is rebuilt but not open, I built that a generation ago when the traffic volume on Dunrobin Road was around 7,500 vehicles a day. And right from the day it opened, it was successful. If you remember what I told you, it had a liquor store in it, a beer store in it, a post office, a pizza shop, a chiropractor, a grocery store, a meat store. It wasn't a big plaza. It was only 10,000 square feet, but it was quite successful until it got blown down in 2018 by a tornado. So this is a 6.5 acre, it's zoned highway commercial, so similar to what you would need to build a plaza. And it has this old Quonset hut on it. You know what a Quonset hut is, right? Okay, the Quonset huts are old style military accommodation. They were developed, I think, in the 1940s, I think, where you could just literally pop them up in somebody's backyard today, but back then on islands in the Pacific, where you could store munitions, armaments, food, whatever. So it's kind of like a hemisphere, which is a very strong structure. That's stronger than a square. You guys know that, right? If you build
Yeah.
something that's like this, it's easy to blow over. So you can see this is kind of almost a hemisphere. So it's fairly strong. It's a metal skin. These are super cheap buildings. I use them all the time. And this is an old Quonset hut. I don't know how old, but probably at least 30 or 40 years old, that was on this site when my client bought it 2 years ago. As I said, it's just over 6.5 acres, zoned highway commercial. What you're looking at now is about 1 acre of gravelled space. So what my client did was he bought it, he put gravel in about 1 acre, and he tidied up the Quonset hut. All right, and he painted it and added new windows and doors. That's just another shot of the Quonset hut. This is the survey. So down here, so you always look at the survey, and this is highway. Can you see my cursor moving back and forth?
Yeah.
This is Highway 43, and this in yellow is his property. So it's just over 6.5 acres, and you'll notice that there's some property in front. So he does not have any frontage on the highway, but he has 2 rights of way. So the way to access this property is through a right of way here in green and here in green. This one is, I think, 18 feet wide, and this is 10 feet wide. So his plan was to bring traffic in this way, one way, come up here and exit this way. So he's going to do basically one-way traffic. All right. So that's the survey. There is a pylon sign, and one of the things that my client did was he reestablished hydro. So there was hydro on this property, there was electricity on the property, but I think the last owner, didn't pay his bills. So I think it's Ontario Hydro here, or Hydro One, I guess they call it now. Hydro One came and yanked the meter, so he had to do a brand new service. So we put in a 200 amp underground service that services the property now. And he calls this property the Village, and it's all about storage solutions. All right, you can get that from the sign. Just another shot of the land. He did a very nice job on the gravel. Good job on renovating the building. Yeah, I got lots of these pictures here, and you can see this is him under construction last year as he was graveling the site. So to gravel a site, as you guys know, you have to grub it. Grubbing means removing the topsoil and the trees, and the bush, and then you have to put down engineered fill, and you have to compact it. So that's what he did. It's quite expensive to do. It's got a new sign on the Quonset hut itself. This is the new entrance that he constructed. That's the right of way here. And you can see on the right-hand side, remember I showed you on the survey, there was a property in front. That property in front is owned by somebody else. All right, so these are pictures of the inside of the Quonset hut. The Quonset hut is really just going to be used, I think, for storage. It's 4,100 square feet of storage space on 2 levels. So about 2,000 or a little bit more on the ground and about the same on top. And he put in a new subfloor here, which you can see in the picture. So you can store quite a lot of stuff here. So this property was used for storage for many years, decades. They stored golf carts here in the winter. And you can see he put some new pine subfloor in. This is the ground floor. It's a little bit rough, but for an industrial use where you're just storing pallets of stuff, it doesn't matter. This is not an office building, okay? You can stop me anytime if you have questions. Just another shot of the ground floor. And I guess we're at the end of the pictures there. All right, so that's what you would see on MLS. Let's look at some more stuff. Okay, so I'm just on the public side of this, so I'm not going onto the, I'm also a realtor, as you guys know, and I could go onto the back end, but I want to just show you what you could see on the public side, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you have the asking price here, so it's $474,500, and that would be, because it's commercial, plus HST, right, guys? Ario, you got that?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you bought a house for $474,500, it is not subject to goods and services tax or harmonized sales tax, but commercial property is. If the company you're using to acquire, or you personally, are registered for HST and you're going to use it for commercial purposes, you can self-declare and not pay it. So it's actually a good thing that it's plus HST. A lot of realtors, Armin, I talk to them and they don't get that, right? I mean, I have to explain to them and they say, oh, well, no, HST is included. I say, no, it's a good thing it's not. Oh, no, HST is included. I mean, I can't win those arguments. I just hang up, right? If they don't buy it. Somebody who's got a little bit more experience will buy it. All right, so now let's read the listing description. 6.56 acres of highway commercial land available from close to downtown on a good, reasonably busy Highway 43. Renovated Quonset hut, newly installed underground hydro, 1 acre approximately of newly gravelled area. And then the zoning is terrific. Storage space, industrial space, workshop space, parking, automotive sales. So you could have a used car guy here. You could have a service and automotive service as well. You're allowed a restaurant, and I think that would mean food truck too. You could have a warehouse and much more. Something else which was really cool, when I looked at the zoning, it had accessory dwelling house or accessory dwelling unit also permitted. So if I were to own this, for example, I would, I would almost certainly add a house to it. Armin and Ario, I've talked to you about it before. If you own industrial land or commercial land and it has accessory residential, that's a good thing, in my opinion. Gives you some extra income, and having somebody live on site is one of the best security measures you can take. So I like that. It's not that far from Ottawa. It's about 41 minutes from the Canadian Tire Center. So that's a pretty important thing to know. It's 27 minutes from Carleton Place, and that's probably important as well. The pylon sign has power, so it's backlit, which is good. All right. So that's kind of what you get from MLS, right? You get some other details like single phase hydro. You know the difference between single phase and 3-phase, right?
Okay. I guess single phase is just on off.
Single phase is something that you would typically have in your house, right? You can run, your TV, you can run your computer on single phase, you can run the stove and fridge. But if you have heavy machinery, like if you have say computer controlled machines and you're drawing a lot of power, you would prefer to have 3-phase power. That, all major industrial buildings would have 3-phase power. Right? You have a more stable power system, and it also is you're less likely to burn down your building by overloading it. Right? So that's important for you to know. If you're just using this site, like I wouldn't, on this site, Armin and Ario, I would not build a retail plaza. There's lots of retail in Smith Falls. What I would do here is I would do the things that I like, which would be storage, contractor yards, parking lot. I would put a food truck on it because you don't make much money from it, but it attracts a lot of people. But you could put a warehouse here, but if you wanted to have heavy industry here, it's not zoned for that. A warehouse is permitted use, storage is a permitted use, an office is a permitted use. All of that is good. But heavy industry is not a permitted use. But if you did somehow have the heavy industry designation, you would have to upgrade the power, and that's quite expensive. All right, so that's important. Now you notice the frontage here, it says only 28 feet of frontage. Well, in actual fact, it has 0 frontage because that 28 feet are the 2 rights of way. But because this is MLS, it doesn't allow me to write 0, right? Yeah. So I put 28. So, but it's a good square. It's irregular, but it's got a good square shape to it. But the actual frontage is very limited. But at least you have the pylon sign right at the road, at the highway. All right. So you don't get that much information from MLS. And so what you would do is either you or your realtor would ask the realtor a bunch of questions. This is a good start, but it's not enough. All right, and I'll show you what's next, okay? So if it's somebody like me putting this thing up for sale, like when I do a listing, Armin and Ario, I will do a slide deck, right? So when this is going to sell probably in the next few days. So one of the questions that you would ask, or your realtor would ask, is why is he selling it? You won't see that on MLS, right? So people ask me, people who are experienced, well, one of the first questions is, why is the owner selling it? And it's a good question to ask. What is their motivation? Maybe they're in financial trouble, which today would not be unusual given the state of the real estate business. Maybe they're getting divorced. Unfortunately, that's also a big cause of sales like this. You know, you get divorced, your wife wants half your estate, you got to sell some stuff, right? Maybe. But in this case, what happened was my client, I coach him. He bought this 2 years ago. He was going to turn it into storage and contractor yards, and he started down that road. But then another opportunity came up. He bought a company called Brick Painters. What they do is they restore heritage brick buildings, you know, homes and beautiful downtown buildings to their original color and shape, and it's an art, and his business is blowing up. So he's going to take, you know, he's got no mortgage on this. He's going to take the proceeds, whatever he gets for it, say he gets $474,500 less whatever commission he pays and legal fees. So saying that's, I don't know, $450,000. He's going to take that and put it into the Brick Painters business. I don't want him to sell it because I think it's a fantastic business, but you know, he came to me and said, hey, listen, this other business is blowing up. It's for sale. And, you know, as a coach and as a realtor, I have to take directions from the people I coach and I serve. So I put together a slide deck. And so when people call me, I'll PDF, I have a PDF copy of my slide deck, I'll just send it to them. I don't believe in NDAs, you guys. A lot of realtors love NDAs. They think it makes them more important, I suppose. But have I ever told you what I think of it? Why I think NDAs are not as important as other people think?
No.
I'll put this on the record for you. If somebody you like and trust signs an NDA, they intend to keep it confidential because they will keep it confidential. They just give you their word. They'll do it, and they will. If somebody is untrustworthy and they sign an NDA, they have no intention of keeping faith with that. You know, I deal with some people overseas, some Russians, and Russians have very little respect for the law. I'm not making a political statement. It's just not part of their culture. They'll sign 10 NDAs, but they'll pay no attention to it and try and sue a Russian, especially these days. So, you know, I don't mean to pick on one group, but that happens to be a group that just doesn't have a long history, or frankly, any history of respect for contracts. None. It's not in their culture. Yeah. So unfortunately, if you get an NDA signed by a trustworthy person, you don't need it because he's trustworthy or she's trustworthy. If you get something signed by somebody who's untrustworthy, you have to sue them, and I'm not going to sue people. So I don't insist on an NDA. That's just my personal preference. And I don't give information to people I don't trust. They just don't get the package. So here's just some of the information that they would see. They'd get the full municipal description. They'd look at it on Google. They'd see the zoning. Lot size is actually a little bigger than this. Then here's that number, 7,600 Ario. They'd see the structure. It should have said here on 2 levels. Electrical, there's the new 200 amp underground service. And believe it or not, my client, his first name is Woody. His real name is Matt, but everybody calls him Woody. Woody bought all the fencing and the gate. And when he calls me up this spring, I expected him to tell me, you know, he was opening for business. And he puts it up for sale. And then I said, well, what about the fencing and gate that you bought last year? Did you put it up, right? No, it's lying on the site. Yeah, so I didn't want to say anything, but that's pretty poor, I thought. I won't show you his video, but he's done some good marketing. He just hasn't opened for business. He does have a website. I think this would probably be worthwhile looking at if I could find it here. Yeah, he's done a pretty good job with his website, but he's not open for business, or not really. And so
he's selling the property and the business, I guess.
Well, that's a good question. I asked him the same thing. Like he runs the Brick Painters. What does he need? You know, the village. What is the URL here? The villageworkshops.com. What does he need that for if he's selling it? He said, well, I'll consider it. I said, well, if somebody gives you $474,500, you can throw in your $2 website. So you know, so that's a very good question, though, Armin, and that's a question you would ask. You know, if I were buying it, and frankly, if I was younger and if I wasn't bogged down on that endless Belleville project that I always bellyache about, I would buy this because I really like the business. But you know, life is what it is, right? So because I really like it, and I think this is a great investment, but that's neither here nor there. But he built a decent website. He calls this the Village. So anybody who's parking there or has a workshop there would be called a villager. I quite like that. Serving Smith Falls, Perth, Brockville, Ontario, Ottawa. Secure, safe, and affordable industrial storage yards. And he put some pictures. I don't know where he got those from, but those are obviously not the site. And then he's got different yard sizes. And he goes on and on and on like that. And he even has this, you can see here on the bottom right, this is Woody from the Village. And I guess you could have some kind of chat with him from his website. So I think that's not too bad. So if I were making an offer for this property, or you guys were, your realtor would say, I want the URL, I want the website, I want the business name, I definitely want the fence and the gates that just lying there. Because it's lying there, guys, if you don't put it in the offer, it would be considered a chattel and he could take it. Right? So you gotta, you know, there's a lot to learn about this sort of thing. All right, so let's go back to this. There's the survey again. And by the way, it's a topographic survey, which will help because eventually whoever buys this will have to do a site plan, right? And you'll have to show how you're going to handle the stormwater and all the other things that go into a site plan. So having this topographical survey, he did do that, and that's a good thing. And then you're going to see more pictures here, which you've already seen. So I'm going to go through this pretty quick. I know I like the new barn door he put in. He put in a new man door here, put some new windows in. So he's done some good work. Now there's something in here that I wanted to show you. This is again the inside of the Quonset hut. Again, you can see the floor is rough, but like I said, if you're putting pallets here or you're parking golf carts here, that's fine. I wouldn't do anything to this Quonset hut other than what he has already done, which is clean it up and add electrical. So at least you have some electrical capacity and lighting. This is what I wanted to show you though. This is in the Quonset hut, and this is they actually had an office in here, which was insulated and heated. Now that's a long time ago. So I asked Woody, this is when I thought he was gonna go ahead with the business. I asked Woody to strip it back to the frame, but not to remove it because, you know, whoever buys it, if you guys were to buy it, I'm not saying you would buy it, but if somebody like you guys bought it, you would probably reinstate the office. And it would be insulated, you could heat it, you have a subfloor already here, you got a window, as I said, you've got a man door, and it's very useful to have one office on the site for whoever might come. Like if I were selling used cars here, maybe this would be my office and my sales office, and the Quonset hut would be where I'd repair the vehicles, and then I'd have a yard outside, and I'd be selling, you know, 10 or 12 used cars a month probably, or maybe a bit more, maybe 30. That's again, so you come in here, that's the man door that we saw from the outside. The overhead door is just to the right off camera here. There's the man door going into the office. There's a interior window of the office, which I think is a good idea, so you could see into the Quonset hut. And that would be worthwhile doing. There's probably $100,000 worth of wood in this building. So I'm talking to one guy, he's actually a French guy from France, and he repurposes architectural elements. So let's say you guys were demolishing an old house from the 1800s or a structure from the early 1900s, you know, much bigger. He will go in and he will rescue architectural elements. You know, there's beautiful elements often in these things. That wood that this is constructed from probably is 100 years old, and just the wood alone, if you were to take out the second story and you needed to store bigger stuff here, you wouldn't throw this wood out or burn it. You probably could sell that for 100 grand. And then in my slide deck, I put in case studies of other properties similar to this or similar uses to this that I've been involved with. You guys have heard me talk about Longyards before?
I believe so. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So this was a business started by Chris Long. He's was a carpenter. This is one of his daughters, Lily. Chris became a single parent. He's been a single parent bringing up this young girl when he was 19. His girlfriend was 16. She had the baby and said, "I don't want to see her again," and hands the baby off to Chris. So he's been bringing Lily up for a very long time. He's done a great job with her. And he's remarried and he has 3 more kids, and he's a good father and a good husband, I think. Anyway, this was so what happened was he was a carpenter. He was doing work for me, and I liked him. He comes from a very, very difficult background, and I convinced him to buy 10 acres of industrial land on Bank Street. Mm-hmm. And start with the contractor yards. And it's called Longyards because his last name is Long. Yeah. So it's Chris Long, Longyards. Believe it or not, I'm surprised I haven't shown you this yet, but anyway, so this is, when we first came to this property, this was a house on the front of the property, and it looked just like this. This is a picture I took. Mm-hmm. And when we stood there, and this property had been for sale for years, and you can see why. It just doesn't show very well. Mm-hmm. When I saw this, I said, "Chris, never, ever, ever demolish this house." He said, "This thing's a wreck. It had 2 feet of water in the basement." I said, "Absolutely do not demolish it. It's a gold mine." He said, "Are you crazy?" I said, "Well, some people think so." And so I said, "If you demolish it, you will never get permission from the city of Ottawa to rebuild it, because it's industrial land. It didn't have accessory residential like the other designation." Mm-hmm. So he listened, and this is what it looked like when we showed up. Nobody, people would see this and they just run away. This is what it looks like after another year goes by. He renovated, so it went from that to that. He renovated it. So this garage here is where his site office is. So he runs Longyards out of this office. He's got I can't remember whether it's 2 or 3 bedroom apartment here, and he's got another 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom apartment below. And what he found is that people will rent the ground floor or the lower level and a contractor yard so they can live and work in the same place. And he gets something like $7,000 of revenue generated from this house now, a month. But that includes for the upstairs and the downstairs a yard, right?
Wow,
it's incredible. Now this is Chris in the garage as he's finishing the office there, and then you can see this is the office at the garage. It has good ceiling height. It is a sound insulated between here and the office, so the office will exist separate from the house. This is Lily holding up very proudly her dad's card. All right, that's Lily there. And that's Chris again, of course. And the yards weren't finished. So these are yards. He has to install the gates, and he has to install privacy fencing as well. This is the original draft site plan that Chris did. And this is Bank Street here. And you come straight down it's a big road he put in, and then there are yards, contractor yards on either side where you can park, you can put machinery, you can put sea cans, shipping containers, and a million other things.
Just sorry to jump in there.
Sure.
When you see I guess a property like this, right? How do you decide what the spacing of each yard should be, or each individual storage space?
Great question.
Is there like an optimized area, I guess?
So there's kind of a rude military expression. It's the military expression is suck it and see. Suck it and see. That's what the military, it's an actual military expression. And what the military means is, let's say, Armin, you're the older brother, so let's say you're the general and you're commanding Ario, me. I want you to go and attack that position over there. Ario and I don't have any idea what's going on over there, and we blindly charge there, and we're both dead an hour later. a better general would say, Bruce, I need you to scout out that area and see what's going on. And then I'm going to send you an aerial over there to attack the position once we have a little bit of intelligence. So what I mean by that, Ario, is Chris did not do, I think there's 80 contractor yards here, something like that. He didn't do 80 yards. What he did was he did a few. Probably his first phase was maybe 5 yards. And he tried different sizes, 50 feet by 50 feet, 40 feet by 50 feet, 50 feet by 100 feet, 100 by 100. And he wanted to see which ones were most popular. And his most popular yards by far are his smaller ones, which are 50 by 50. So, unfortunately, market research is a very imperfect science. It's really not a science, it's an art. And the only way, in my opinion, to know what the market wants is to have somebody come along and say, I want that yard and I'm willing to pay this amount of money for it. It's the only real way to do it. So pre-leasing is very important, and phasing is very important. I mean, Chris spent $1.7 million developing, by the time he put all the gravel in, put all the fencing up, put all the signage up, all the other stuff he had to do, he spent $1.7 million on this thing. But he didn't spend, Ario, he didn't spend $1.7 million up front. He spent maybe $300,000 up front doing some yards of different sizes, and then he saw what was more popular and he did more of that. You suck it and see. If it tastes bad, don't eat anymore. If it tastes good, eat more. Okay, does that make sense, Ario?
Yeah, that makes actually
Right.
perfect sense.
So phasing is very important. This model was originally, I didn't invent this contractor yards model. It was invented by a man by the name of Kyle Powell in Gilbert, Arizona. That's part of the Phoenix area. And you can see this was Kyle's very first contractor yard. It looks like kind of a racetrack here. And then Ario and Armin, you can see there are a bunch of contractor yards. And this was a very successful model. And, I was working with Kyle back in the day. This is just a shot of what's going on in Arizona. In Ontario, you can put, basically chain link fence around and you're fine. In Arizona, where crime is much, much, much more violent and prolific, chain link fence isn't going to work. You have to have a masonry wall, you have to have barbed wire, you have to have very heavy gates, and you have to have constant surveillance. I mean, crime in the United States is a whole different level. I guess you guys know that, right? And so if you're doing any business in the United States, you just legals, crime, policing, all of that is more difficult. There's no question about it. Now here's one of Kyle's. This is the very first contractor yard he did. He paved it, and the reason he paved it is in Arizona that if you didn't pave it, the dust would just destroy the place. It's like a desert, right? It would just blow dust everywhere. So he, in Canada, in Ontario, I wouldn't pave it. And none of my contractor yards that I deal with, and I've got them going in Edmonton, in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, in BC, in Quebec, in Ontario, Texas, Florida. I mean, all kinds of places. You have to do your design that makes sense for the locale. So he had to pave his roads, but here in Ontario, in my opinion, you would just leave them as gravel. But do you see how wide they are? And you can see the privacy fencing is very important, because you can have in a yard, you can have $2 or $3 million worth of stainless steel pipe. You don't want people knowing it's there, right? They'll steal it. This is how parking is done. So the other part of this equation is parking boats, RVs, trucks, buses, you name it. Very, very profitable. Probably the most profitable real estate investment you can make. And to do it properly, you have to do it like this. You park on an angle, right? It's much easier to bring a truck in like this or an RV in like this and then back it out and leave, right? So that's a lot easier to do than that. All right. So when you're dealing with these large vehicles, that's it. This is another one. It's called Just the Spot. This one is in Ottawa. And Peter Hauderowicz bought this from another client of mine It was called Cosmic Storage. It's now called Just the Spot, and Peter owns it. It's been very successful. This is the original site plan for his property. It was about 18 acres, and you can see that there's an office building here on the left-hand side. And then there's room for, I think, 22 storage buildings in this original site plan. This was the original owner of Cosmic Storage, Larry Bravar, who was a 50-year-old hippie. He was a wonderful person and a good friend to me, but he was truly a hippie. You can't really see it here. He has hair all the way down his back. And, you know, he liked to grow fruits and vegetables, and he loved growing weed, even before it was legal. And so it was his business initially. And you can see here's his garden. He was a wonderful gardener. And he had built this office building here on the site. It had a beautiful office on the ground floor, had a very good Larry was a very good builder, had a full basement. And upstairs it had another office with a single office and some meeting rooms. Now, I can tell you, because he did not have accessory residential in the zoning, that one office upstairs with the meeting room and the kitchen and the wet bar and all that good stuff was actually an apartment. Okay.
Wow.
And it's not a legal apartment. And Larry asked me about that. This was a long time ago now. And I said to Larry, do you have anywhere else to live? He said, no. So I said, well, just put it on the plan as a single office on that level, and meeting room and kitchen to serve the meeting room, etc., which is legal. You just can't have any cupboards in there. You can have an armoire, I suppose. But it's not legal to do that, but you might decide to live there, which in fact he did. Okay. So as a realtor and as a coach, I'm not allowed to suggest that, but I'm allowed to comment, right? And at least give him the options. All right. Now, Ariel, what's the question you're going to ask? Why did Larry sell this?
Why did Larry sell this?
Exactly. Good question. That's a question you always want to ask. A lot of realtors will BS you, but I'll tell you the truth. Larry didn't really like winter, and he liked to hang out and grow things, and like I said, smoke weed. He visited Cuba for 3 weeks and met a really cute Cuban girl, and they fell in love. Next thing you know, he comes to me a year later and said he can't get the girl out of Cuba. Cuba's a communist country. A lot of people have forgotten that, but it's true. And she wasn't allowed to leave. You're not allowed to leave without permission of the Communist Party. And he didn't want to risk trying to get her across to Florida illegally. Lots of people die on that trip. It's only 90 miles, but it's very dangerous. So he decided to sell his business here in Ottawa and move to Cuba. I didn't want him to sell this. I said, Larry, well, wait a second. Whoa, what are you going to do with the proceeds? He said, I'm selling my house. Bruce, you're selling my house for me, which was worth about 1.2 million. And you're selling Cosmic Storage, which is worth another million. I'm going to have $3 million plus or minus. And I'm going to go to Cuba. And I begged him not to take all this money to Cuba, because if you put it in a Cuban bank and the government needs money, they'll just take the money. It's a communist country. They just take it. If you don't believe me, ask anybody who's lived in a communist. I'm not a political guy, but that's just a fact. So I said, Larry, take $300,000 with you. I'll leave the rest in Canada, please. All right. So if they take your money, you've got another $2.7 million or whatever here in Canada that you can access. He did listen to me. So we sold Cosmic Storage, Ario, to Peter Hauderowicz, and I sold his house and some other stuff he owned, and he went to live with his his young woman, and they had a son together. So a few years later, just to add to the sad stories we told each other before we started recording this call, a few years later, Larry developed lung cancer. And he calls me up and he tells me the news. And he was the kind of guy who would believe in alternative medicine, having a shaman, kind of do this over, put precious stones on your chest and somehow make you better. And I said, Larry, that's fine. I know you believe that stuff. That's great. But I want you to go and see a traditional doctor. Oh, I don't need that. I'm going to be fine. Less than a year later, he was dead.
Oh.
He was a wonderful man, and I miss him terribly. And he was still in his 50s, I think. And worse than that, gentlemen, he died without a will. So now he's got this beautiful young woman in Cuba and a son who's now probably 10. And the family here in Canada and his family in Cuba are now fighting over, a few $1 million. So pretty much a terrible story. So so my client, Peter, so you, again, as a coach and a realtor, often I'm on both sides of the transaction. I'm coaching one side and the other. And as long as you disclose that you have a conflict of interest, it's not a conflict of interest. At least my clients don't think so, and I don't either, as long as there's full disclosure. And I always I said to Peter, look, if you want to get your own realtor, that's fine. You get your own lawyer, that's fine. But anyway, in this case, I just brokered the deal between the two fellows, between Larry and Peter. So Peter's an engineer and he bought this, and it had one storage building that Larry had built. It's quite big. I think it's about 4,000 square feet. And then he had this building here, which was also quite nice. But what I told Peter to do, let me just see if I can get down here a little bit further. Sorry, guys. Now back to the village. So I'll just stop sharing my screen then. So what I told Peter to do, so I said, Peter, don't build any more mini storage places. Don't. Just do the entire rest of the property, which is like 15 acres. Just grub it, gravel it, put contractor yards and parking on it. And that's what Peter's done. And he bought that place for $1.1 million from Larry. And it's been appraised at $4.5 million. And he's put about 1.5 million into the fencing and gravel. So he's probably gone from about $2.5 million to $4.5 million in the last few years with it. And when he's fully finished, because he's got another 5 or 6 acres, he's doing that this year, when he pulls up the topsoil and gets rid of the bush. He'll probably top out at a $6.5 million appraised value. Recently, he got an offer close to $10 million for the property.
Wow.
That's a blowout offer. I said, Peter, are you going to sell it? He said, no, why should I? He's still young, he's older than you, Armin, but not that much older. And he said, why should I? Yeah, what's it going to be worth? When I'm your age, Bruce, I'm 72. So when you're 30 or 40, 72 sounds really old. I guess it is. But, he said, no, he makes, right now, after paying his mortgage and everything else, he makes about $35,000 a month from it. And he lives well. I mean, the other thing that he tells me is that he has automated this to the point where he's now working. I said, you're probably working, 4 or 5 hours a day? He said, Bruce, I don't tell this to many people, but I'm working 4 or 5 hours a week. I said, well, and you make $35,000 a month? He said, yeah. I said, well, I'm in the wrong business. I should be out of the coaching business and into the contractor yards business. And the reason for that is, guys, and Kyle has found this. Kyle's been at this now for 10 or 11 years. Kyle found the same thing in Arizona, and the other guys I coach in all the other provinces and states. They have found that, even if you sign a contractor up to a month-to-month agreement, they're often there for years, right? Because once you have your sea cans, your shipping containers there, you have maybe a little workshop in there, you have all your inventory in there, you have your vehicles in there, so you're paying $700 a month for a contractor yard. It's an invisibly small amount of money if you think about it, right?
Yeah. And
they just stay forever. So if you ask people for 5-year leases, you probably wouldn't do a single lease.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that Woody, the property I have listed for sale, has done 1 lease. And you know who did that 1 lease?
You did?
Oh,
I did it. I mean, Woody's so busy with brick painters. I get that. I mean, he's making lots of money. That's fine. But this is like the stepsister, right? You forget about her. So this very nice truck driver, trying to get a hold of Woody, and he calls me up. I said, "Oh, you want to buy this place?" "No, I don't want to buy it. I want to park my tractor and trailer there." I said, "Okay, let's do it." So I said, "Woody, do you have like a parking agreement? Like he's owned this for 2 years." He said, "No, I don't. Why would I have that?" "Well, just in case somebody wants to actually lease something." So I created a parking agreement for him. I had to write it, and I signed up this very nice guy's name is Avjinder, and he's parking his tractor and trailer there. The first client, $200 a month plus HST for one tractor trailer.
Wow.
And he runs Avjinder runs a driving school. He teaches truck drivers how to drive these rigs. And he said, "Oh, can I park a couple more on there?" I said, "Absolutely." But I said, "Another $200 for each one." He said, "Yeah, sure." So I said to Woody, we got one customer now, and $200. And by the way, I got a commission for it too, $200. And
First month's rent.
By the time I split it with my brokerage, I could buy you each a cup of coffee. But all kidding aside, I was happy to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to sell this anyway, and it's just a month-to-month lease. Now, the reason I did a month-to-month lease is it's better for Avjinder, just in case he doesn't like it. But it's also, given the fact that it's for sale, if somebody buys it, you remember in commercial, there's no overholding, right? So and I'm not saying you guys would buy, but if you guys bought it and you wanted to do something else there, you tear down a Quonset hut and build something else, and you don't want anybody else on the site, you could tell Avjinder, "Look, it's month to month. We'll give you you don't have to give him a full month, but you would probably give him a full month's notice so he can park his rig somewhere else."
Yeah. Are these contractor yards not oversaturated now? Because I feel like everybody and their mother and brother, they want to go after this now and buy land.
Yeah, well, the person who's at fault is me. I coach now well over now. It must be closer now to 2,550 clients, but I always say 2,500, but probably 2,550 or something like that in the States and in Canada. And this is one of my favorite models. And so, certainly in the Ottawa area, I'm responsible. I mean, I've got people in Rockland doing it, people I mean, I don't know. I've lost track of it. So you're right. The person who's screwing up the market is yours truly.
I had an idea as well. Sorry to interrupt, but I had an idea about the contract yards are good, but I was thinking of like doing workshops for men, but like doing it in smaller portions and having like tools there for them to come and I don't know, build stuff.
Okay, so I mean, you're not just right, Armin. Believe it or not, I was just about to say that. I mean, I was just about to say that. And because what I wanted to tell you was before Steve Jobs passed away, Steve Jobs at Apple?
Yeah.
Before he passed away, he was spending 50% of his work days on business models, Apple business models. Most people think Steve was spending most of his time on Apple products and services. He was not. I mean, that was part of his thing, but it wasn't everything.
Yeah.
And when he introduced the iPhone, right? When he introduced the iPhone, he had a full-blown business model in mind. Before the iPhone, you could buy, say, a Motorola phone from Motorola. You remember those flip phones?
Yeah.
Star Trek had them back in the day, right? Like that. So back in the day, Motorola would sell you, Armin, a flip phone for, say, $100, or maybe it was $200.
Yeah.
So if you bought a Motorola phone for $200 from AT&T or Verizon or Rogers or Bell or TELUS, whatever, and you paid $200, Motorola would get $100, AT&T would get $100, and then you'd have a nice phone. And those Motorola phones were almost indestructible. You could drop them. They weren't like built out of glass like these Apple phones. You could probably drive over them and they'd still work. And so they would last forever. So Motorola would make $100 from the sale to you, Armin, once, and then they'd have to wait years before you would buy another Motorola phone and give them another $100. No. Steve Jobs said, no, we're not doing that. You're going to buy an Apple phone, and Apple is going to get part of your subscription with AT&T or with Bell. So if you're paying, I don't know, $70 or $100 for your phone, $20 of that, something like that, goes to Apple.
Yeah.
So if there's about 1.2 billion iPhone users, and if everybody is paying $20 of that to their carrier, that ends up with Apple, that's $2.4 billion a month in revenue, continuing revenues. Motorola got $100 once every 7 years, and Apple gets $2.4 billion. And then, of course, Steve had in mind an app store. People didn't even know what an app was, but he said, oh yeah, I'm going to have an app store, and that's going to make lots of money. And we're going to have a cloud service, and we're going to have all these other things that go on this thing. This isn't what made Apple. This product isn't what made Apple the richest, most well-known company on the planet. It's the business model, okay, behind it. So you just got an A+ on your Prof. Bruce exam today, because what you're talking about is something that I am trying to explain to the people I coach, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So you're 100% right. I mean, it's just fantastic what you just did. This is a North Country Sheds workshop. You know, I've talked to you, I'm sure, about the North Country Sheds guys, right?
Yeah.
They make these unbelievable buildings. This is a 2x6 wood frame construction with metal roof, overhead door, man door, window, insulated underneath, with HST included, just under 15 grand.
Okay.
Delivered on site. And as you know, it's legal in Ontario now to have sheds, outbuildings on any property, maximum of 15 square meters, which is 161.5 square feet. This thing that you're looking at is 160 square feet. So just under the legal limit, no building permit required. So what I would do is exactly what you said. I would have a lot of these contractor yards, and I'd plunk these in there. This particular workshop is about 30 or 40 paces from this tiny house. This is actually a house, believe it or not, less than 200 square feet. It's one that I own, and it's rented to a young woman who has her workshop here. That's her house, and that's her workshop. Do you want to know what the ROI is on the workshop?
What are they?
$750 a month, maybe.
So no, I don't get that much. For this one, I get $700 a month, plus HST. So Ario, I'm going to make you do some calculations. All right? You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So I bought this from North Country Sheds for $14,700.
Okay.
Then I added electrical for about $3,000. Then I added spray foam insulation for another $3,000. I put a laminate floor down, which was about $800. Then I drywalled it and painted it inside. I'm talking about for about probably close to $4,000. What does that total up to?
I'm getting 25,500.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I think 28,000 is about what I paid, including HST. So let's just use 28,000. So keep that number somewhere. 700 times 12 is
8,400.
And multiply that by 0.66. I'm assuming that 34%, Armin, goes out the window for operating expenses. probably wouldn't be anywhere near that, but let's
Yeah.
just assume that. So what do you
Okay.
get for net operating income, Ariel?
Like 55.44.
And divide that by 28,000.
And we get almost 20%.
Yeah, I think so. It would be somewhere, the cap rate on this, Armin, would be somewhere between 25 and 28%. That's what I think it is. And, you know, that's what makes you rich. You understand that? It's cash flow.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
if the three of us were to buy another, you know, bungalow somewhere in Ottawa and then add a basement apartment, we'd probably end up with about a 6.5% cap rate.
Mhm.
When you guys are my age, that'll make you rich, right?
Yeah.
It would take a generation, maybe 2 generations and then you guys, when you're my age, when you're 72, you'll be rich. But if you don't want to wait that long, you want to try and make investments that have, you know, 15%, 20%, 25, 28% cap rate. That'll make you rich a lot sooner.
Right.
So you're 100% right. That's the next step. And then if you were to actually do a business like this, Armin, you'd get into the business and then you'd find the next step after that. Well, I don't even know what that is, but you know, you have to keep moving your business model. Like Steve
Yeah.
Jobs didn't just say, okay, we have a business model circa 2010. And if you look at the business model today for this thing in 2024, 14 years later, it's quite a bit different.
He
So
went from, I think it's called, he went from reoccurring business to recurring business, or recurring business to reoccurring business, or something like
That's
that.
right.
I forgot.
Well, the holy grail of all business is committed monthly recurring revenue, CMRR. Okay, so
CMRR.
now the next thing you would do when you're looking at an MLS listing is you would say, well, what kind of ROI can I get on this? What is the highest and best use? Now, if you ask most realtors, what's your ROI on this? Oh, it's going to be great. But other than that, they don't really know. And if you ask them what the highest and best use is, they say, well, did you check the zoning? Okay, well, helpful. But you understand what I'm getting at? Like unfortunately, even most sellers don't really know their own business, right? So you guys are hopefully learning from me what are the right questions to ask, and this is what we're trying to establish today. So hopefully the seller will actually have, or the realtor for the seller will actually have what's called a reconstructed income and expense form, right?
Yeah.
So I did that because, you know, Woody asked me to sell it. So I said, okay. So the asking price is $474.5. And you notice, even though it is plus HST, I don't include HST in any of my calculations because it's an ITC. It's an input tax credit. It won't make any difference, right? So, and again, that's something you know, but a lot of realtors will struggle. And even some accountants and lawyers don't really understand that. Anyway, $474.5. Your land transfer tax is about $6,000. Some legal costs might be $2,150, something like that. It's a guesstimate. So the total purchase price of this thing could be $482,615. And I guessed that if you have to, this is a small township. It's not like doing a site plan in Ottawa. If you had to do a site plan in Ottawa, that number is not going to work. I told you guys I did a site plan for one of my friends. He's a veterinarian, a vet. He has spent in fees and applications and studies, he spent over $300,000 in 3.5 years in Ottawa to get a site plan approval for a 5,400 square foot vet clinic. It's ridiculous.
Did it finish, by the way? I know we talked about it, but did it ever finish? Or
yeah, we're under construction now finally.
Okay.
3.5 years, gentlemen, at $300,000. It is retarded. But this is North Elmsley. I've talked to the chief engineer. It's probably going to be less than that. And I'm hoping it'll be around 55,000. But you notice I always identify it as a guess, right? You'd have to do you as a buyer would have to do your own due diligence. But that you're going to need to do you're going to have to hire a planner. You're going to have to hire a stormwater management. Probably a couple of other studies. In Ottawa, you might have to do 20 studies, 15 studies. In North Elmsley, you might have to do 2 or 3. So it probably will be less. And then, you remember how I told you guys about a half an hour ago, you would phase this, right? So what I did was I said, if this whole thing were developed, what would it cost and what would the value be? But you wouldn't go out and gravel the whole thing. Woody has already gravelled 1 acre. You'd fill that up with contractor yards or workshops or contractor yards, whatever. Armin, you would make sure that damn thing cash flows, and then you would do another phase, right?
Mhm.
But what I did here is it's about $37,000 an acre. The whole site is just over 6.5 acres. He's already done 1 acre. So to do the rest of the gravel would be about $200,000. Fencing, gates, dividing it up would be quite expensive, $700,000 or $800,000. You need he already has the fencing there and the gate there, but you need a computer system, you need security, you need video cameras. So I put in an allowance for that. Let's call that allowance. The Quonset hut is already there. So it's already been renovated, so I don't think you do much, although you might put the office in, you might reinstate the office. I'll put that in here just for the hell of it. If you were to reinstate the office, maybe that's $7,500. Probably something like that. So I put in here exactly where you were going, Armin. I put in 3 sheds. By the time you buy them, remember we were about $28,000 or $30,000, so I guess I upped that to 106. So your total cost of developing this might be just under 1.2 million, with the cost of acquiring it 1.6. Revenues. I put in $600 a month, Ario, for the workshops. At Smith Falls, I get $700 in Ottawa, in the rural part of Ottawa. Downtown or closer to downtown, I get $1,000 for a workshop.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. There's a lot of demand for that. I mean, everybody has a side hustle. I bet you have friends that have side hustles. So I got a little bit of revenue from workshops. I've got some storage revenue from the Quonset hut. I get a little bit of money for each yard that I rent. So you'd end up, once this thing is fully developed, you'd end up with almost $400,000 in gross operating income per year. I took off 34% for operating expenses. I put in a food truck. You don't make much money from that, maybe $650 a month for 6 months, but I put it in because I think it's a nice thing to have. People always like food trucks, and it brings folks to the site. So you'd end up with net operating income of about $265,000, which would give you a cap rate on this of 16%. If you use a fair market value or market cap rate of 6.5%, means the thing would be worth probably over $6 million by the time you finish.
Yeah. Wow.
And that is probably realistic. Now, it might take you 4, 5, 6, 7 years to do it, but that's, I mean, Peter's now in his 4th year. He's doing with Justice Spot. He's doing very well. Chris Long is probably in his 6th or 7th year. Kyle in Arizona is probably in year 10 or 11, doing very well. So I like it. But those are the kind of things that you would do on every commercial listing. You'd work through that kind of analysis. And then every single thing that you think is right, you have to then go out and hire a lawyer to make sure you've reviewed the title. You talk to the township or the town or the city to make sure the zoning is in fact what you think it is, and that the uses that you're thinking about doing are okay, and what you have to do in order to maybe qualify for a site plan approval. Hopefully it won't be as difficult as Ottawa. So there's a lot of steps in your due diligence. So that's why, a lot of commercial property that you buy like this, the due diligence period is not, like a house where it might be, 10 days. You need more time.
Yeah.
You guys know that.
Wow.
So is that helpful?
Yeah.
That was I had a question in regards to that as well. Just this kind of also ties with our other item in our agenda. What about so just before I ask my question, the workshop sheds, so they deliver it, they place it down, but you don't really want to move it again, right? You want to just keep it there.
Yeah, so that is correct. And I'll show you. I'll show you a company in Alberta, Ario, that I'm looking at. I'm looking at buying some of these next. I'll show you as soon as yeah, here it is.
Mhm.
So this is a company, excuse me. This is a company in Alberta. These guys are really cool. They're called Rockbox. I mean, they're a bunch of young people, they're probably your age, who run this company in Alberta. They're just awesome. Their marketing is great. It's called
Wow.
rockbox.ca. And this is a workshop. And unlike the ones that I've been buying from North Country Sheds, it comes fully ready to rock and roll. You can see it's really basically a shipping container that has been renovated. So it has a man door here, it has a window here. It is perfect size for Ontario. It is 8 feet by 20 feet. Guess what? You multiply 8 by 20, you get 160. And so you could put this on your site
Wow.
without getting a building permit. All you need to do, once you drop this on, you have to prepare a gravel bed, Ariel. So I would not put it on a gravel bed like this. I would have a gravel bed that was up a little bit, so it's like
Mhm.
that. So it's, all of mine are 4 to 6 inches above grade, just because you get snow in Ottawa and you get rain and you don't want water in this thing, okay? So I'd mound the gravel a little bit, so I would have a base to put it on that was a little bit higher than the surrounding gravel. But you can see these holes here. That's where you put a forklift. You slide your forklift in, and so if you ever want to move it, this is trivial to move. You pick it up, put it on a flatbed, and off it goes. They drop it on your site. The only thing you do is you hook it up. Can you see here? You hook it up to
Yeah.
electrical. Literally in a day or two, you're ready to go.
How much? So two questions. Really like the idea, but don't like these containers rust faster, or are they not susceptible to like corrosion compared to the sheds, I guess?
So I have bought some of these sheds that are showing here, and I know they
Yeah.
last 40 years because I've owned some that are 40 years old and they're still useful. I have to repaint them every 7 to 10 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So I do repaint them. Like I'm doing one actually in a couple of days. Yeah, tomorrow we start on repainting some of them that are quite old, right? But
Hmm.
wood frame buildings with metal roof, I know that they last 40 years. That I'm sure of. And as long as you
Okay.
repaint them every few years, they look fine. I'm with you on that. I am not sure what this will look like in 5 or 6 or 7 years. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know. But I suspect if you look at lots of old sea cans, it'll look pretty shitty, right?
Yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
rust. It'll rust.
Yeah.
Now, you can always sandblast it and repaint it. You can paint metal. So you could probably, keep these in reasonable condition. But I have a question for you guys.
Mhm.
And I want you to answer as honestly as you can. Which look or brand do you prefer? This one or this one?
I personally like the container more just because um, it has the door that fully opens up. It has the man door, of course, and the window. And it seems, I don't know, better because you can move it.
What about
I
you?
I would choose the other one, the shed personally.
So this is an overhead door that opens, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's an overhead door that opens. It has a man door and it has this as well. So Ariel, you and I are on the same wavelength. To me, this is prettier. This is cuter. But I have been surprised, Armin, how many young people I've talked to in their 20s and 30s who prefer this. They like this look better.
Yeah.
So Armin, you remember, Ariel, how I talked about suck it and see? Um, right. So one thing you've got to understand, which I'm sure you guys do, but it took me a long time to figure out, I am not the market,
Yeah. Okay.
right? I am not the market. Now, I have an issue that's sort of dogged me all my life, which is I always think I'm right. Right?
Mhm.
I always think I'm right. But I've learned over the years, A, I'm often wrong, and B, I am not the market. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy some of these from Rockbox in Alberta. They'll ship them here, no problem. And they're about the same cost, Armin, as the other one. So this thing here, by the time we finish it, it's probably about 28 grand. This thing, the good thing about this, Armin, is, as you noted, you can move it, but also you don't have to spend 2 months fitting this thing up. Like
Yeah.
it took almost 3 months by the time we put all this stuff together to get that ready for the young woman who uses it as her workshop. This one, we hook it up to electrical, and next day, the workshop is ready to go. And of course, this thing is very secure. Like these are reinforced doors, windows, so I mean, you can break in. I mean, if you have a welding torch, no problem, you can get in here. But most people don't know how to use a welding torch. And if you give it to some teenager to break in here, he's likely to burn his hand off, right? Just slice your hand off with the welding torch in no time. So it's non-trivial to break in here. That is highly secure compared to this, right? This with a pry bar, you can get in here in under 8 seconds. This one would take some doing. You could do it, but it would take a lot more.
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead.
Do you have more pictures of the inside or how it looks like? I really like the idea. I don't know why.
Well, I like it too. I'm going to buy
really
some.
cool.
Let me just. I'm sure I have some pictures because I asked them for pictures of the inside. So, just give me a second, and I'm going to put. I'll put. Oops, do I have it there? Yeah, I think I do. Oh shoot. Yeah, I do have some pictures. Hang on. And I'm going to put there. I know the. I know the young woman who does their sales. So if you wanted to buy a few of these, you let me know, because for about $27,000 or $28,000, you can buy one or you can buy three, right? Well, each one would cost about 27 grand.
How hard would it be to do it yourself?
Okay, that's a great question. Hang on a second. So anyway, for you, Armin, I'll just put it in the chat box. Okay, so there's the link. And if you want an introduction to, have you ever heard this? The lawyer who represents himself has a fool for a client.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
The doctor who treats himself has a fool for a patient.
Right.
Okay. The amount of work it would take to buy a C-can and recondition it to the level that these guys in Alberta can do, the amount of time and effort and money you would spend, I bet you'd spend $100,000 to save. Well, you wouldn't save any money. You could buy it for $27,000 finished and just rent it out. Say you could rent that thing out for, I don't know, $800 or $900 a month. Your cap rate is 25 or 30%. Ariel's already figured out, probably higher than that.
Yeah.
What the hell's wrong with that? And no hassle at all. They just drop it on one of your sites and you rent it out and you're making money. It's a fantastic model. But Ariel, you and I think are in the minority. I liked the cuter little woodsheds, but other people prefer the look and one of the women I talked to about it, because she's interested. She's in Toronto. She says she has an industrial property. She's going to buy a bunch of them, and she's going to buy them from Rockbox because she liked that look better, Armin. She's going to ask for one that's black, one that's white, one that's black, and she's going to do the checkerboard. She said, "It'll look awesome." I said, "I'll trust you on that." So you could do some really cute things with them, and she's planning to buy half a dozen to start with. She's a well-to-do accountant, very successful. She loves real estate. And when I showed her that, I guess it was last week, she said, "Oh yeah, I'm in for 6." And
how much can you depreciate it? Speaking of accounting, per year?
I think because it's a C-can, you probably could depreciate it over 7 years.
Yeah, that was also going to be my question. Like the storage, not the storage shed, but the workshop shed. let's say if we can do a land lease and put those there, what would that look like? Because we could, I guess, depreciate it potentially pretty well.
Yeah, hang on a second. There was something else I wanted to. So on the depreciation side of things, and just so you guys know, I nearly flunked my engineering accounting course, 55 years ago, right? So I am a terrible accountant. So don't take any accounting advice from me. But I think when you deal with because I would argue with my accountant that that's a CCAN, which it is, and that I could depreciate that over, probably 7 years. That's my guess. I would have a much tougher job arguing depreciating this over 7 years because I have some already that have been on my books for 40 years. So I think the depreciation on this, I hadn't thought of that, Armin, but I think you're right. The depreciation on this would be a lot faster.
Yeah.
So you understand, Ariel, so it means that your profits would be taxed at a lower rate because you have much greater depreciation. But you need a proper accounting advice, not just my say so. So what was your question, Ariel?
No, that was it. If the sheds, if we can like get a land lease, put the sheds there, they don't move. So I guess the owner gets them back. Anyway, it's just a thought in that sense. We can go different paths. But essentially being able to maybe, I don't know, get a land lease for 10 years and depreciate it for 10 years or something.
Yeah, I think this one I would struggle with my accountant, putting it anywhere close to the other one. That's really I should probably leave it there because I'm really talking out of my ear. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on that?
No, really interesting idea. I'm gonna start looking at some land deals now. See what we can do.
Yeah, for sure. You wanted to see the inside, right, of the rock box?
Oh, yes, yes.
So here's one picture that she sent me, this young woman from Rockbox in Alberta, that, you can do all kinds of cool things with these, right? So this was one of the pictures that she sent me. And then this young woman I coach in Toronto, she'll do one that's white, one that's black, one that's white, one that's black, and do the checkerboard thing, which I thought was clever. And then here's the inside. So it comes with heating, and I don't know if it has air conditioning, but I think you can get air conditioning. And that's kind of what it looks like.
And the emergency exit door sign.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I didn't see when I looked at it, oops,
is the door, the door that swings open.
The cargo door. So this one obviously had. Armin, if you buy these, make sure it has these doors, because if you have a workshop, you definitely want to be able to bring stuff in, that you're working on and stuff out. You don't want to have to just put everything through the man door, right? So really the inside of this one is really more as an office than it is as a workshop.
Yeah. These would be great site offices as well.
Fantastic site offices. But even on a site office, I would want to have these doors. I would, because let's say you had an office here. In the nice weather, Alberta has about 100 days of summer. Ottawa has about 113. Southern Ontario has about 120 something. So they have a little bit more summer than we do. We have a little bit more summer than Alberta. But even in the short summers that we have, the 100 or so days that we all have, I'd want to be able to open them up, and there you are working in. You have fresh air and sunshine, etc.
Yeah.
And the rest of the year, you're really working in a cave, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you have the door, it might have insulation problems, right? Just because it swings open. So
no, they insulate those doors.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. That overhead door on the workshop that Ario and I like better, it's an insulated garage door.
Oh, but for the container.
No, for the container, it would be those. They have cargo door. Those are called cargo doors.
Okay.
And the overhead door is like the garage door. So this guy here, this this workshop here, this one here, you can sort of, can you see the overhead door through the bush here?
Yeah.
That is an insulated garage door.
Right.
Oh, what about the cargo doors?
So this is fully insulated, spray foam insulated, and the garage door comes insulated. Otherwise, you would freeze to death in the wintertime. And these cargo doors here on this thing here, okay, these cargo doors would also be insulated on the inside. Otherwise, you literally freeze. Like Alberta's even colder than Ottawa. And I thought just because Ario liked it, I'll search for another few seconds, Ario, and I'll show you the interior of the workshop and then what this young woman is using it for, if I could find that, just because you and I like that a little better. See if I can find it. Maybe not. Well, I didn't find that, but I wanted, since I found it, I'll show you. Remember that little tiny house that she has not far away? Let me show you the interior of that. This is inside that little house. That's her kitchen. Oops. That's her, come in the door. That's where she hangs up her coats and puts her shoes. That's just another shot of sort of the area that she has. That's her bathroom. It's pretty cool. Another shot of her kitchen. She's got a full-size fridge. She's got a little pantry there. That's her electrical panel. She has obviously internet. It's got a reverse cycle heat pump. That's her bed. Internet, TV. Anyway, so that's the little house. But I just because I got you, Ario, and you and I like it better, I'll see if I could find pictures of the inside of her property.
Yeah, because I think the containers, they're I guess cool and nice, but it's maybe someone would want to be there for like a little bit, but in the long term, I think that people will want to go in like the sheds. But that's my opinion.
I agree with you, and I think maybe we can convince Armin if he sees the inside. So this is these are the pictures that I'll show you. This is I'll show you how it comes. So this is North Country Sheds. This is how they deliver these. Okay. So it's just on a low rider with a tilt bit. So it comes on the low rider, they tilt it, and they literally slide it off and put it in place for you.
Wow.
And this was the delivery. It's just a shell that they deliver. And then there's the overhead door, and it's an insulated overhead door, so you aren't going to freeze to death. And there it is in place now, and then here it is. And this is 2x6 construction, and that's the man door. That's where it is, obviously sited. This is a picture of me standing up inside there as they're beginning to renovate it. I looked pretty tired that day. That's a close-up. I even look worse. And there's another even closer. Oh my God. And so you can see we're starting to, you add the electrical first, and then you spray foam it, right? So we'll see if I've got some pictures of that. And there's the overhead door. So even Ario, even in the winter time, you know, it's kind of nice to have more space. At least I think so. All right. So there it is there.
Nice view.
Yeah, yeah. And there's that little house I showed you, obviously winter pictures. Now here we have, now we deliver this and then we had to, you know, we had to level it. So it's been leveled. And then you'll see inside here in a second. So this is what it looks like now. All right. Wow. It's got a little coffered ceiling. It's got a laminate floor. These are the rails for the overhead door. There's the reverse cycle heating and air conditioning. She runs a company called proofcanada.ca. You ever seen that? I probably have shown you that.
No. Proof Canada?
I'll show you that. Yeah. It's a clothing fashion business. And you know, there's her setup. So to me, Ario, and maybe to you as well, that looks a lot, you know, if that was my office or your office, I think long term that would be more enjoyable than being inside the sea can. What do you think, Ariel?
I personally think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
But yeah, as you said, we're not the market. We'll have to
Yeah,
taste
but
the
we'll suck it and see.
yeah.
We'll test it, right? So I'll show you what she does. She's very successful. So this is her website. She makes these clothes for fashion-forward women, mostly in the States. From that little space, she produces made-to-measure stuff for fashion-forward women in the States, and in Canada too, and some in Germany. She has clients in Iran, believe it or not. And you know, these little dresses, look at them. They're not cheap. $560 for a dress like that, but they're obviously made to measure. And she makes these things. I mean, she's very successful. Makes real money doing it too. All shapes and sizes, you know. And her main marketing is TikTok. So if the Americans are successful in banning TikTok, I don't know what she's going to do, because she'll release a TikTok video and she'll get over 300,000 views.
Yeah.
Like when she releases her clothing line, she'll release a TikTok video. She'll get anywhere from a few thousand views to as many as 307,000 views, and she'll sell out in minutes, right? So, and then she makes money doing that. So there are a
$500.
million people, Armin, if you find a piece of land, don't buy anything without running it by your coach. But if you find a piece of industrial land that you like, you know, this is a wonderful, wonderful model. I like it.
I have one on Stittsville, Main for 860. There's a pizza shop on it. And
you own it now?
No, I was looking at it yesterday. So that's the first one that came to mind.
Well, let's go visit it. Hang on a second here. I'll share my screen again.
There is, I think, 5 for sale on Stittsville, Main, but
yeah, for sure. So what is the address there?
Oh, hold on a second. I think I showed it to Ario, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see just a second. So
maybe more.
Maybe more, yeah.
I don't see anything.
15. No, not that one. 1476. No, sorry. This is yeah, it's this one too. 1476 Stittsville, Main, but there's also another one.
So it's this one here?
Oops.
Is it this one?
Yeah, there's this one here. Which had a great frontage, and you could probably do great signage. But there's another one as well. Let me try to see if I can find it. It's not coming up for some reason. I think it's 18. If you search Milano Pizza, Stittsville, Main, you'll find it. I don't know if it's still available though. Oh, 1589.
It's not this one then. Yeah, it's this one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. 1589.
That's interesting. I think this one might be better because it's, you know, the other one, this one here is like up on a cliff, right?
Yeah.
Look at the elevation difference. And you want to have some elevation difference, but this is too much, I think. This one here, I like a lot. And there's a lot next door here. Maybe you could buy that too. So what would you do with this?
I was just going to do an outdoor showroom, like for I don't know, like sheds or whatever, tiny homes. On the right side, on the left side, I was just gonna keep the lease with Milano's and just rent it out for 5-10 years and then sit on the land.
Yeah. Well, you know I coach these guys, right?
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love these guys. Yeah, these are fantastic. Have I shown you these before? I think I have.
Yeah, yeah.
These are fantastic. I mean, they're just unbelievable. I've sold a ton of these already. I like selling them. If I if I wasn't involved in this stupid billable project, I'd buy some more. You know, they're really high end, and the layout is fantastic. So, Armin, these have 470 square feet of living space on 2 levels: bedroom, cheater ensuite, kitchen, storage, fridge, sofa bed. So that's sofa and turns into a bed. Living area, work area, kitchen area, washer, dryer, then cubby stairs. You go upstairs. Here's the loft. You've got room for a double bed and a single bed up there. So, you can sleep anywhere from 4 to 7 people here.
Wow.
So it would be fantastic to put one right here and just start selling them, right? Like these
Yeah.
guys, Humble Creek will give you a 5% referral fee on a $200,000 sale for every one you sell. You get,
Wow.
it's 10 grand.
Yeah. There is another piece of, so this one is 880, but there's another one that's really interesting as well.
Okay,
It
which
has
one?
it's 1538 Stittsville, Main.
Hang on a second.
Um,
Is it 1538 or 1338?
yeah, 1538.
1538, sorry.
Yeah, 1538.
Okay, I got it.
And if you look at the depth of the lot, it's 330 feet.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Oh, it's right next to Ernie Voss.
yeah.
Oh, whoa, I'll tell you something. Imagine putting a tiny home here. That'll piss him off. Everybody who goes to buy an RV is going to come in here and say, oh, Armin, you're buying this. Oh my God, that is fantastic. Oh my goodness. Oh, this would be fantastic. He'll do all the advertising. You'll make all the money. Do
Yeah.
you know what that's called, Armin?
I think it's
Was it?
bandwagoning or something like
That's it.
freeloading.
Yeah, freeloading for sure. But there's an actual marketing term for it. It's called ambush marketing.
Ambush marketing.
And that goes back to the day when, for example, let's say, Armin, you are a rep for Nike. Okay, you're the chief marketing officer of Nike, based in Seattle, and Ario, you're the chief marketing officer of Adidas. And let's say, well, there's the the Summer Olympic Games are going to be held in Brisbane. I think in 2032. So anyway, so Ario, you do a deal with the Olympic Committee. Adidas is an official sponsor of the Olympic Games. You're going to spend at least $100 million for that sponsorship. So you go to the Olympic Village and it's all Adidas. Armin leases a piece of land 2 blocks from the Olympic Village, but outside the Olympic Village, and creates a Nike Village. So all the people who are coming to see the Olympic Games have to go by Armin's Nike Village to get to the Olympic Games, where you paid $100 million, or maybe it's even more now, maybe $300 or $400 million to be a sponsor of the Olympic Games, and Armin has paid nothing. It's called ambush marketing.
Ambush marketing.
It's called ambush marketing. So if you were to buy, how much is this? They're asking for this.
1.1.
Yeah. I don't know if it's worth 1.1, but if you were to buy this, you would put sheds, you would buy some of these things from North Country Sheds, at a wholesale price, obviously. You'd buy some tiny homes, maybe from my client, Humble Creek. You'd buy some of those things from Rockbox, in Alberta. You'd put them on here. Everybody goes to Ernie's property, will be driving right by. Oh my God, you would sell a lot of them. And what you want is your vendors, your manufacturers, just like you buy cars from the car company, they're on your lot until they're sold, but they still are owned by the car company, or in this case, the Humble Creek guys, or the Rockbox or whatever, and you're just repping them, right? If you do that, you won't get 5%, you'll probably get 15%. 10 to 15%, right? And it's
That'd be
money for
amazing.
nothing. So hopefully your inventory doesn't cost you anything, right? And your marketing would be you'd have a sign. That would
Yeah.
be really cool. Anyway, that's very interesting. This one I like.
There is another one, 1586.
You're putting me to work now.
It's 100 by 165 lot
Where is that one?
on Stittsville, Main as well.
Yeah, so it's not far from Ernie.
Hmm.
I know Ernie. I don't even know if he's still alive. So there's this one here.
Yep.
And does it have frontage?
Yep. 100 by 100 feet.
All right, let's look at that. I think it's this one. So
And they're good businesses just because the traffic flow, and you can probably do some nice signage there.
Wow. And what do they ask you for this one?
1.25.
Doesn't mean you have to pay it, right?
Yeah. They're asking.
Yeah. This one might even be better.
Yeah, it's also a lot more expensive. But the Milano guy is across the street from this guy here, and it's $600,000 cheaper. But of course, the lot is 20% cheaper. But yeah.
Yeah. So just whatever you're doing, let me know before you buy it, okay? Right, so that you, Armin, and I and Ario can think it through, just the way you guys wanted me to walk through that commercial listing, which I did for Smith Falls. We would have to do exactly the same level of analysis, right? For a property in Stittsville, we got to make sure you buy the right one, right?
Yeah.
And
Actually, he imports containers, so
no
I'll
way.
have a chat
Oh
with
my
him
God,
next. Yeah.
you don't have to go very far. All
So
right.
we'll just have a chat with him. Yeah.
So, Ario, we did not cover off some of the items on your list. Like we didn't do the land leasing thing, right? And we didn't do some of the other things, but we still have a few minutes left, so we can cover off a couple of them, okay?
Go ahead.
All right. So one of the things you asked me about was how to push your professionals, your engineers, your planners, and your designers to speed up. And I thought that was a really good question. So there are a couple things that you should do, but the first thing that you should do is not be your own project manager, in my opinion. So on every project that you do, guys, you guys can act as the development managers. That's kind of what I'm teaching you to do. So you're doing lots of spreadsheet analysis. You're thinking about the highest and best use. You're thinking about the financing. You're thinking about the refinancing. You're thinking about all these cool things that we've been talking about. That's the role of the development manager. The project manager, he or she, and there are lots of good females in this business, in the project management side of things. The project manager is the person who puts together a critical path schedule. Remember what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. And he or she sits on them like they're chickens or they're eggs, right? So you guys won't do that. You guys have got a million things in your mind. You've got other things you want to do. You're looking for new opportunities. You're looking at the financing. You're looking at construction contracts. You're looking at highest and best use. You're doing spreadsheet analysis. You're doing a million things. Project manager is different. His only responsibility is to make sure that the planner gets the plans into the city on time and the engineers get the engineering reports to the city on time, that they get the comments back from the city in a timely manner, that your consultants respond to those criticisms. On the vet clinic, which took 3.5 years, my client, the doctor, who's a wonderful guy, didn't want to have the additional expense of a project manager. He said, I'll do it myself. I said, doctor, you have a vet clinic. You have to castrate cats and dogs every day. What do you know about running a project like this? Oh, I can do it. I can do it. I acted as the development manager, which I'm good at. But I said, doctor, I am not your project manager and I don't want to be, right? That's just not my deal, right? I'm the guy with the spreadsheets and the financings and the highest and best use, all the stuff we've been doing. And I did for the doctor, bringing the right team together. That's my responsibility, making sure the contracts are not stupid. But the project manager is working on his or her schedule every day, making the calls, texting, doing the site visits, right? Where, you know, I mean, just in the simplest possible terms, Ariel and Armin, if you don't have a project manager, and I've seen this happen, the framers come on site to frame a building before the footing and foundation is in place. The roofers show up before the framers are finished. I mean, you know, these are incredibly stupid realities, and they're fighting, and then they're charging you double or triple because they have to come back to the site 2 or 3 times. Everything that can go wrong does go wrong. So what you need, in my opinion, is the development management role, the project management role, and a foreman. A lot of people think a foreman is useless, that you have a project manager, he can fulfill the role of a foreman. He cannot. The project manager has to be in his office running the schedule half the time, and then doing site visits and prodding and doing meetings the other half of the time. The foreman has to be on site almost all the time, and often you'll see a foreman walking around a project, and you say, well, he's not really doing anything. Just take the foreman out of a project and see what happens to that project. It's a disaster. A disaster, okay? So the first thing I would do to make sure that your professionals are going to work well with the city and the city with your professionals is I would hire a good project manager. You need that. The other thing that I do, and we've already talked about this, I'm sure, is I choose boutique consultants as opposed to consultants that work with huge firms. If you guys were Mattamy Construction or Minto or any of these large companies, yes, you can go to Novatech, you can go to Fotan and the others, no problem. But if we're small beer, like most of us are, I mean, the amount of development I do is pretty small, and you guys are not huge yet. If you go to Novatech, you won't even be the tail on the dog, you'll be the flea on the tail of the dog, right? You won't get any kind of attention, right? You need people who care about your projects, who want to work with you, and when you call or you text or you email them, they respond. I've got people that I work with, when I email them, they email me back in 5 minutes or the same day or the next day. You email somebody at Novatech, and you're not on that top list of the Mintos, the Mattamys, the Cardells, the Richcrafts, the Claridges, you might not get a response for 3 weeks. Well, you can't run a project like that. So picking the right consultants is important. You've heard this before: hire slow, fire fast, right? What that means is that who you hire is very important. You want to do the due diligence as much as you can, but if they're not working out, even in the middle of a project, I just did that yesterday. I just fired one of my workers who's been with me a long time. I said, that's it, we're not having, he was just making one, he's been smoking a lot of weed on the job, and he's been making a lot of mistakes. So I brought him into the office and I fired him yesterday. And what can you do? So you want to fire people, no matter what the circumstances. If they're not doing the job, don't put up with it. Give them a chance to improve, but fire them. Then you asked another question, maybe it was Armin's question. What do you do when professionals disagree? First of all, there shouldn't be many disagreements in the first place. And if you have a good project manager, he or she will help you a lot in that regard, because they're delving into the nuts and bolts of how to make a building work. And they know that the mechanical guys, if there's a problem with their systems, will blame the electrical guys, and the electrical guys will blame the mechanical. So let's say you have an electrical mechanical system, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning is electrical mechanical, and it doesn't work for some reason. The electrician will blame the mechanic, and the mechanic will blame the electrician. Your project manager and your foreman should be on site and know enough and say, no, the electrical is at fault here. He has got to fix it, right? So project manager and foreman are crucial. I don't know if that helps, but that answers that question, I think. And there was one other question we can deal with, which is, when is a joint venture good? I've talked to you guys about this before, I'm sure, which is the non-partnership partnership model. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, sounds familiar.
What's that?
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Yeah. So let's say the three of us were going to do a deal together. We're going to buy a triplex together. And let's say, Ario, you're on your own, Armin's on his own, and I'm on my own. But we like each other. We have complementary skills, and we think we could benefit by working together to buy a triplex. What I do when I put these deals together is I ask the three men or three parties to not to do one triplex, but to do three. And so maybe we do one this year, next year we do another one, and the year after that we do a third one. So maybe 3 or 4 years from now we have 3 triplexes. Armin owns 1/3, I own 1/3, and Ario, you own 1/3. Sometime in the next 4 or 5 years, we get together and we decide, okay, Armin's going to own 100% of this one, I'm going to own 100% of that one, and Ario's going to own 100% of one. So you become partners so you can develop your business together and work together. You feel comfortable working with each other, but you're eventually going to get a divorce, and you plan the divorce before you get married. That's a non-partnership partnership model. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So if Armin decides to run off to Morocco with a girl and sell his triplex, you just sell it. But Ario gets married and wants to leave his triplex to his kids. You keep it. Maybe I want to refinance mine and escape to Costa Rica for 6 months every year, right? So we each have, ultimately, we'll each have different priorities, and we'll start fighting. So if you plan on a partnership or a joint venture, Armin, in my opinion, you plan on a divorce at the same time, and you agree on that going in. I wanted to show you, this will be the last thing I show you guys today, because you're getting tired, I think, and so am I. I'll show you one of my clients. And this is a tech company that I helped start some years ago. And it was four students came to me. It's probably 20 years ago now, maybe even more. 4 guys, two engineers and 1 marketing guy and 1 tech guy. So there were 4 young people who are just about to graduate from engineering and other disciplines at Carleton University. Nice young men, I really liked them, and they wanted to start a company called Grade A Techs. Grade A Techs back then promised to do at home or at your place of business on-site service. So if you had your computer, your network was down, or you had a virus running around, they'd come to your home or your place of business, they'd fix it on-site. And back then, 25 years ago, that was pretty novel. So they started this, Grade A Techs, and they were very successful. But one of the things I asked them to do is I said, who's going to be the president? And the guy said, well, we think Matt LaFrance should be the president. I said, fine. And who's going to own this? Well, it's going to be 25, 25, 25, 25. Each partner was going to have 25% ownership. I said, okay. And what happens if you guys get into a dispute? Well, we'll just settle it. Yeah, but what happens if you can't? Well, we don't know. So what I said was, for the first 5 years of the life of this company, you are going to give voting rights over all of your shares to one person. You decide who that is. I'm just your coach and your professor. I don't know. And so that if there's an impasse between the 4 of you, you've already decided how to break that impasse. You guys follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, again, if it was the 3 of us, we might all agree that if the 3 of us can't make a decision, we're not going to sue each other. We're just going to say, okay, Armin, you have the final vote. Doesn't matter. Ario and I want to do this, but you don't. We can't resolve it. Armin, for the next 5 years, is going to make the final decision, because there can only be one controlling mind in a company, in my opinion. One. And they did that. So Matt LaFrance became the president of the company. He had voting control over all of the shares for 5 years, because that's when most of the arguments will start, in the first 5 years. This company now is called Convergence Networks, is valued at $350 million, right? It's got operations in the States and in Canada. And Matt LaFrance and Alan Gosson are still there. The other two guys have gone on to other things very successfully, by the way. And that company's worth a lot of money. So non-partnership partnerships and deciding whether it's real estate or business, doesn't really matter, tech, make sure that you have one controlling mind and agree who that is in advance, not later. I don't know if that helped, but that's what I would do.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
So Armin, if you decide to make an offer on one of those properties in Stittsville, clue me in, okay? Keep me in the loop.
I will. Can we have a call relatively soon as well? Just because I'm going to crunch the numbers now on these shops and do the so
100%.
that we can do the underwriting.
100%. If you don't mind, send me your thoughts on highest and best use. Send me, don't give me detailed spreadsheets. Give me those summary spreadsheets like the ones that I do. Because I mean, I don't want to see every month for the next 5 years, right?
Yeah.
To me, that's kind of bogus. I mean, that you have to do for the bank, but not for me, okay?
Yeah.
All right, so I'd be happy to do that. I really want to help, and I think you're on the right track in every regard. And if you're interested in some of those workshops, or tiny homes, or sheds from North Country Sheds, or Rock Box, or Humble Creek, let me know. I'll introduce you to those people.
That'll be amazing.
All right,
Perfect.
guys. Yeah.
All right. Take care. Bye.